Today I'm going to recommend you some graphic novels with female-female romances. So my favorite books of the year lists never include graphic novels. I don't know why. It was never like a rule that I actually established, but it just kind of happened. Graphic novels are just kind of a different level for me, and I just don't really want to put them on those favorite book of the year list. I don't know, maybe someday there will be a graphic novel that I love so much where I'm like, I have to put it on there. But so far, it just never quite gets on the exact level as I have with just like normal novels. But as I was kind of, putting together my favorites of 2019, which I kind of do my list throughout the year and already adding books where I know for sure I want them on there. But, with having kind of stopped reading, I had some space left on my top 10 list for 2019. And so as I was going through my books that I read in 2019, I came across so many graphic novels that I truly loved, and a lot of them including female-female romances, and I was like, you know what? It's really sad that these don't get a spot on any list, that I don't get to highlight these amazing queer graphic novels, or diverse, a lot of them are diverse in other ways as well, that I don't get to highlight them. And so I decided to do a recommendation video for some graphic novels with female-female romances, and I'm just gonna get into it. So the first one I want to talk about is Bingo Love. This is a graphic novel that kind of spans a romance between two women over like several decades. They kind of meet when they are young, they become friends, and then over the time they kind of fall in love. And with this kind of being set in the past, they are forced apart by their families and just by society, and they both just end up marrying men, having families, and then later on when they're older they meet again and reunite. It is a beautiful, wonderful, heart-wrenching graphic novel. It obviously, sheds a light on the struggles of queer people back in the day, which obviously there's still more than enough struggles, but definitely was a whole nother level back then. On top of that, it is two queer women of color, so that's obviously a whole nother thing as well. And I just love this story a lot. I just loved seeing this story that obviously has a lot of sadness and devastation in it, just with these two women getting separated by things that are out of their control, and then just having the chance to reunite later on and having the chance to still like live together and have a relationship together kind of towards the end of their life. And I just loved it. It's definitely like sad and obviously, has some hard to read parts in there, but I would highly recommend it. It is beautiful. Then I have the Sunstone graphic novel series. I have read the first 2 volumes so far. This is a very adult graphic novel series, so there's definitely some explicit content in there. Be aware of that before you go into it. It is a graphic novel series about BDSM, and it's about these 2 women kind of exploring this BDSM relationship. I mean, obviously I've only read 2 volumes so far, but definitely, it's not just a physical relationship. Feelings definitely are involved. It's another absolutely beautiful graphic novel series. The art is fucking stunning. And, it is not safe for work, but it is beautiful art. It's just so artistic and so beautiful and so wonderful. Like, it just always feels right, just the way everything is portrayed. The relationship between the 2 women is so wonderful. The development between these 2 women is so wonderful. And it's also a graphic novel that I feel like will give you some information about BDSM. Like, if you're open to reading this graphic novel series, you will definitely learn something about BDSM, and you will like understand BDSM and why people are into it. And I just very much think that it's wonderful, beautiful art. It's a really, really amazing storyline with really, really wonderful characters, a lot of amazing side characters as well. And then on top of that, it is informative about a topic that I think so many people are misinformed about, and it just really kind of teaches you little bits about it in an entertaining way. I think that this graphic novel series does so much, and I very much appreciate it, and I cannot wait to read more volumes because I just love it a lot. Next we have Waves, and now this is a graphic novel that deals with the very serious topic of loss of a child and a failed pregnancy. And this is definitely not focused on a romance per se, but the main relationship in this book is between two women, which obviously adds a whole nother level to this loss of a child. It is one of the most stunning graphic novels I have ever read, and probably the graphic novel that came the closest to potentially making my top books of the year list, just because it was perfect. There is a pain involved in the loss of a child. You can't understand that if you have not lived through that yourself. And I just think that the way the art kind of portrayed this tragedy and the way you feel, the way this makes you feel, the stuff that you go through when you go through something like that, I think that was probably the closest thing to kind of somehow understanding what that must feel like and what this whole process is like. And it's just beautiful. It's beautifully done. It's obviously this horribly tragic thing, but the way it is portrayed in this story is beautiful. And the author and illustrator has done something really, really special with this graphic novel. While I definitely think that this is a graphic novel that is super hopeful, I would be very, very, very cautious going into it if you do have experience with loss of a child or a miscarriage, because it's quite intense. And I think that it can be a very healing read, but I think especially if you might have gone through something rather recently, I think that it can also just be quite a lot. So definitely be careful going into it, but overall I highly, highly recommend it. It's stunning, breathtaking. Next I have Laura Dean Keeps Breaking Up With Me. This is a graphic novel that is another one where it is not actually about a female-female romance, but it centers around a female-female relationship, and it is another one that is about an incredibly important topic. This centers around a toxic relationship, and I think that it's so important to put stories out there that show that a relationship between two women can be toxic as well, and other women can be toxic towards other women. I just think that this is such an important book. It is a YA contemporary novel, and I just think that there are so many queer women who need this book in their hands to understand that this is something that doesn't just happen to us, inflicted by men. There are women out there who, you know, are being emotionally abusive as well. I mean, obviously there's also women who are being physically abusive, and obviously there's women who are being abusive towards men as well. But I just think this particular experience is incredibly important to talk about, and I am just so glad that this graphic novel exists. It has incredible art. It's rather simplistic, and it is also mostly in black and white, except a little bit of pink as well. So I thought that the art was absolutely stunning as well. I'm glad that I have this so I can show you a little bit of it. But I would highly recommend this for its message, but also for its art. And it's another graphic novel that obviously deals with kind of like a serious, you know, not like happy topic, but also does carry kind of like a hopeful message, and it very much ends on a positive note, and I just very much like that. And the friendship group in this is also absolutely amazing. One of the best friendship groups I've maybe have ever read, definitely full of like queer people and just them very much like living their queerness as well, which is so good to see in a YA graphic novel too. I just absolutely love this. I think this got a little bit of hype, but I think there were also people who didn't really talk about it in a positive way, which I personally don't really understand. I think that this is, again, such an important graphic novel and such an important message to put out there, and I would highly recommend it. Next I have Spinning. This is actually a graphic memoir that is based on Tillie Walden's life. It is another very, very heartbreaking, really intense graphic novel. It very much deals with mental health and just sexuality in general. So this is another one where there was definitely a female-female romance in there, but it doesn't really focus on it, but it very much focuses on just like, you know, being a young girl and kind of figuring out your sexuality, and again very much deals with mental health as well. It is incredible to me that this is a graphic memoir. I found myself reading this and just remembering like this is actually based on someone's life. This is actually things that happen to someone. I mean, maybe that's why it felt so heartbreaking and so intense, because it's like based on someone's real life and on their feelings, and maybe that's exactly why it worked. But I just remember that I felt myself just surprised by, this is not a fictional story, but it's beautifully done, has really great art that works super well too. And I think what works the most about this novel is the atmosphere. Like the whole graphic novel has this really intense, definitely sad atmosphere just all throughout it, and you can definitely just feel this theme of like mental health and mental illness all throughout it. This definitely has some trigger and content warnings as well, which I will leave for all of them. If I have, I don't think I have trigger and content warnings for all of these graphic novels, but for the ones where I do have them, I will leave them in the description down below so you can check them out. But I still think that this is incredible, and like I feel like some people might be put off by the fact that it is a graphic memoir, but again, it very much reads like a fictional story. And I think that again, the themes of mental health and sexuality are just portrayed in an amazing way, and I think that a lot of people will really relate to it. Next I have Stage Dreams. This is a graphic novel that centers around the relationship between a trans woman and a queer Latinx woman, and it is just such a delight. Like this is, I know I mentioned a lot of like kind of sad, serious ones, but this one is an absolute delight. It is so much fun. The art is really fun. It wasn't my favorite art style, but it very much fit the story. And then it was just so great to see this kind of Western style. Like it's like a Western adventure, and it's definitely set in like this Western setting, but it, you know, doesn't have any of the homophobia or transphobia that you would expect from a usual historical accurate novel set in this kind of setting. On the contrary, people are like being really nice and supportive, and it was just really lovely to read, and just the relationship between these two was really wonderful. It also definitely made me emotional, so another one that is a huge recommendation, and especially one if you're looking for a little bit of a lighter graphic novel. I think that this is just a fantastic and fun read. And finally, I have the Moonstruck graphic novel series. I've only read this first volume. I don't even know if there's more volumes out already, but I read this first one and had an absolute joy reading this as well. I think this is maybe the one that's like the hardest to recommend to people, because it's a little bit weird. It's a little bit on the weird side. It's you know, about these kind of these hybrid animal people but it is also centered around the female-female relationships. One of the main characters is Latinx. It's a really cute graphic novel. The romance between these two is really cute and adorable. There's a lot of amazing side characters, and overall the cast of characters is very diverse. It's just this really cute, colorful art style that very much fits the story as it is, just very cute and happy and bright as well. So I think, you know, just it being a very whimsical story, it's not going to be for everyone, and I do think that it reads a little bit on the younger side of YA. But again, if you're looking for something that's just a little bit more on the cute and wholesome and funny side, then this is definitely the one for you. Again, I've only read this first volume so far, but I definitely want to continue with this series, and I just, again, really love the characters and think that the world and the art is just a whole lot of fun. So yeah, these were a couple of my graphic novel recommendations with female-female relationships. If you have any recommendations of, you know, graphic novels with queer characters in general, but especially focusing on female relationships, please leave them in the comments down below. I would very much appreciate that. And yeah, I make new videos at least once a week, so click subscribe to never miss anything and hit the little bell so you get notified as well. And thank you so much for watching. I guess I'll see you soon. Bye!